This podcast could potentially have adult language, adult themes, definitely drinking, and possibly the possibility of sexual content. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Drinking with Authors. This is our Literary Briefs edition. I am your host, Erica Lance. My co-host today is the amazing Bo Lake, and our guest today is Carissa Turpin. Woo! Welcome. Okay, so I'm hoping that everybody blames the internet breakups on vodka and not the internet, but I'm drinking at my boyfriend's parents' house, so I am drinking out of a Let's Beach. I don't actually know what that means.
What does that mean?
This is a very confusing cup. But I am drinking strawberry lemonade with vodka in it, and I have to say it says Let's Beach, and then it has a shark on it, which both those things don't sound like a good plan to me.
No.
So, I'm just gonna keep drinking my vodka here. Bo, what are you drinking?
I mean, maybe it's Let's Beach in that they want you to stay away from sharks, so you should be on the beach itself, not in the water. There you go.
It would be less confusing regarding this messaging. That's all I'm going to say.
I
survival rate if they're less confusing.
It's true. We need some like infographic.
Yeah,
right.
I
a cup that says
my...
"Stay away from sharks."
Stay away from sharks. Stay on the beach. Wear sunscreen. I finished my tea, so now I am drinking water. Exciting.
Okay, well you just got boring really quickly. Whatever. Carissa, what are you drinking?
So I am also pretty boring. I've got this 90s pattern tumbler because this is a 1999 book that I was talking about previously, and I have filled it up with 90s Hassi, not Hassi from the 90s, but Hassi, a popular drink from the 90s.
I think you could have used 90s High C. It would have been okay. Then back to my
it would have tasted exactly the same.
Yeah, it wouldn't have changed anything.
It wouldn't have. That's one of those things that would have survived Y2K.
Exactly.
Twinkies and High C. That's all you need.
I was looking for chocodiles the other day in the store, and they don't seem to have them anymore, which was a chocolate dipped Twinkie.
Ooh.
Yes, and they were called chocodiles, and I freaking love them.
Why were they called
that? Sounds great.
Why is it called a Twinkie?
I don't know.
Somebody marketing-wise said, what we should call these?
Twinkies.
Like ding-dongs. Why are they called ding-dongs? They look like hockey pucks.
Mm-hmm.
They should have called them pucks.
Yep.
Exactly. Nope, they're ding-dongs. Ho-hos. Somebody didn't do the greatest job in the thinking of some of this stuff.
Someone was smoking a little something when they were naming things.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Carissa, rapid fire questions. You ready?
Okay. All right.
What is your favorite book of all time?
My favorite book of all time is probably The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Why is
it's my favorite book too? Why?
You didn't talk about it while I was gone. Is that what?
Oh, no, we actually didn't. We continued our Hunger Games conversation. I guess as far as why it is my favorite book of all time, I like that the person first of all, just one very small detail. I like that the person who is telling the story is not who the book is about. I've always been kind of fascinated by that aspect of it. I also think, when you see, I come from a very poor area of the country, and you see lots of people who just want so badly to be like these self-made success stories. So I know a lot of Gatsby's, and so I think that's what connects me to it as well.
Very cool. Okay, what about your least favorite book?
I would say I'm not big on self-help. I'm not big on books that I think a lot of people get a lot of good out of. And I definitely don't disparage the fact that they get, a lot of value out of those books. But I've never been a big like Brene Brown, Girl Wash Your Face, or whatever all those books are. It's just not, I don't really get a lot of value out of those. I'm not sure that those are my least favorite. I think, the knee jerk answer that I have is to say like 50 Shades of Grey, which
high five to that one, because that is a terrible piece of garbage.
Yeah. I think I perused that like when it first came out, just to kind of see what all the fuss is about. And of course, hated it, thought it was terrible. But also good for the author. She's definitely doing better financially than I am working as a teacher. So I mean, what do I know?
And that just speaks volumes about our society, doesn't it?
Yep, it does.
Yeah.
It does.
Okay. What about your favorite book to a movie or TV show? I think you already discussed it, but let's see.
Other obviously huge Hunger Games fan, love the Hunger Games. Could talk all day about the Hunger Games. I really also loved The Hate You Give. Both the book and the movie I thought was really well done. So that would probably be my second book movie pairing.
Okay, what about the one you think they did a terrible job with?
Oh, definitely Percy Jackson. If you've ever seen the adaptation of the Percy Jackson movies, they're really, really bad. I also think like the Shadowhunter movies. I remember my sister and I going to see those, and we did not think those were very faithful adaptations of the book. So probably those two right off the bat.
Yeah, I didn't read Percy Jackson, so I thought the movie was cute. I did read Shadowhunters, and that movie was freaking terrible.
Oh yeah, I remember like they were trying to like have chemistry or make out or kiss or whatever, and we just laughed the whole time, which I feel like is not a good sign. So
no, I just also think they picked the wrong parts of that book to tell the story about. Like I was like, you read this and somehow picked everything that you shouldn't have been talking about.
Right.
So I don't know how you did that, but well done for
Mhm.
completely fucking that up. So
Yeah, exactly.
okay, Bo, what are your questions?
What is your desert island book? The book you can read over and over forever with no other book.
I hate to say the Hunger Games because I feel like I've brought it up so many times. I do try to do a Hunger Games reread at least once a year. That's how much I love it. So certainly that would be at the top of my list. I also, one of my favorite books is Rainbow Rowell's Eleanor and Park. I just really love that book. So that would probably be another one that I would certainly love to have with me to read and reread. I think there are tons of books that I loved, but it just has to be a certain type of book for me to want to pick it up again. And I think those two are two that I feel that way about.
What is your if you could be any mythological or fantastical creature, what would you be?
I think the number one answer that popped into my head is unicorn. I've always, and I know that's such a stereotypical girl answer.
It's
I've always
actually not for this show. You're good.
Oh, okay.
Don't get unicorn a lot.
So I was as a kid very into unicorns, and wanted like ceramic unicorns to put in my room. And so I think there's something about them that is just very like colorful and peaceful kind of. So that would probably be the mythical animal I would pick.
Very cool. What about a favorite weird food combination?
I think my weird food combo, I don't know that I have any that are super weird. We have here in this area a certain like pop or a soda. Different people say pops or soda. I'm not sure which one is appropriate in this situation. But it's called Elate, and it's kind of like a ginger ale tasting drink. And people pair it with like these super hot chips called Grippos. And so sometimes when I lived in Arizona, if I felt a little homesick, I would think about this combination of this like ginger ale soda and these super hot chips. And there's just something about it that's like very home related to me. So that would probably be my weird food combo.
I like it. I've never heard of it, but I know the soda and the pop because I moved from California where they just say Coke and then they ask
Yeah.
you what do you want. And then I went up to Wisconsin and they were like, what'd you like to drink? And I'm like, a Coke. And I waited to go, well,
and they're like, all right.
and they walked away.
And then they got your Coke.
And I'm like, wait, what kind of soda do you have? And they're like, well, we have this pop and this pop. And I'm like,
That was a pop.
what is a pop? Like,
It's so weird, that's what it's always, I've always called it. And it's very strange, how different areas of the country have their own soda terminology, I guess.
very true. If you could eat lunch with any author, living or dead, who would you want to eat lunch with?
Probably Rainbow Rowell. I have been a big Rainbow Rowell fan since I read her first book. And I think, the thing that I love most about her books are the characters. And Rainbow Rowell books are the only books that I feel like I can finish and like almost miss those characters, or like have a little bit of a book hangover in that I wish I got to hang out with those characters again. And I think that's something very difficult for a writer to do, and she does it so well. And it's something too, characterization, I think, is one of my biggest struggles as a writer. So I think Rainbow Rowell, just because she creates these wonderful, rich characters, and I would love to chat with her about how she does that.
Very cool. So what was it like when you first interacted with an editor?
I think
That
it was
right there, that laugh that just happened. That's what we want to hear about.
I think it was positive. The one like disagreement that comes to mind is throughout my book, I have like excerpts from this like terribly untrustworthy blogger, Professor Prepared. And so my first editor that looked at the book, she really thought that I should exclude some of those because she just felt like the kids wouldn't understand the Y2K information. And when you read Doomsday Dani, it actually opens with a definition from the Cambridge English Dictionary that defines Y2K and what it was. And that was inserted because of that conversation, that back and forth, because they truly, truly believed that young children would not be able, I don't want to go so far as to say they felt like young children could not comprehend Y2K, but they felt like it would just be this really hard alien concept for kids to kind of wrap their heads around. And, I kind of disagreed, especially given the things that kids have gone through related to COVID. And so the book does start with that. So that's probably one area where we differed. But for the most part, I have had, as someone who's gone through the MFA process and had my work tore to shreds by my classmates, and I've got pretty thick skin when it comes to some degree of editing. But that was one particular point that I really disagreed with them on, was this sort of spoon feeding of what Y2K was to children. I really felt like with a few artifacts throughout the book, they would get the concept, the idea. So that's really the only conflict I can think of that I had.
No, that makes sense. I mean, here's the thing. I think the first time you're super edited by, I mean, if you went through an MFA, you got edited. So you're used to having stuff ripped apart. And it's very interesting because I think editors can definitely have a view. But again, like the previous episode, you did a very good point, which is cool. I like what you're saying. However, I do not agree with you. Right. As an author, you should listen from where they're coming from. Make sure you take off all your defense shields, like lower defense shields down to 1, and then listen to what they're saying. And if it still doesn't make sense, then don't do it. Right. But you also can't go into it with defense shields of 10 and throw a big pissy fit and like, that doesn't work because they're trying to help you. It's just, unfortunately, they could have a view that doesn't agree with your view.
I agree with that. Yeah, I think, I always tell like people in writing groups that I'm working with that, you ultimately decide what feedback you take and utilize and what you don't. So I think that's really important to remember.
When did you find your tribe exactly, your writing group?
One writing group that I have, I was really fortunate. They were, one was a coworker of mine at the time, and then he was also doing the MFA program. So he said, we had graduated, and he was like, I'm writing things, but I don't know I don't have any, group that meets once a week like we used to talk about these things and discuss our writing. And so we decided to get, two more of our MFA alums together. And so we started a writing group that meets on Discord at least once a month, sometimes a little more regularly, depending on what's going on. I'm also really fortunate in that I had a group of coworkers at the school I'm currently at. When it was announced that I was going to publish a book, they too wanted to start a writing group. So I have a writing group that meets there about once a month. So it's been really interesting, and definitely, prior to these two groups, when I lived in Phoenix, Arizona, I would get on Meetup and find, writing groups that were meeting, and I would go to some of the meetings, which I think is always a super scary experience. But yeah, I would say that I'm someone who really craves having people look at my work and really getting that feedback. And, I do better as far as like writing regularly when I have a writing group that I know is going to be waiting for my work. And so, I just think it's really important for any writer, no matter what stage they're at, to have people they trust that will put eyes on their writing.
Oh, I agree 10,000%. And it's the people you can trust, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Bo, questions?
What is your least favorite genre?
My least favorite genre. I would say I have I'm not much of a romance reader, but I am not opposed to writing romance. Whereas I love fantasy. I love reading fantasy. I think fantasy novels are fantastic, and I think fantasy authors are so talented, but I would never in my wildest dreams write a fantasy book. So when it comes to books that I read, romance, I'm not, there are a couple obviously YA romances. I have read a few of those and really liked them. As far as being a reader, romance. As far as being a writer, fantasy. Just because I think, I look at people who write fantasy and I'm like, oh my God, who's related to who and what kingdom are we in? And I could never, if I open a book and it starts with like a family tree or a map, then I know like it's intense. So I think that is a genre I could never see myself writing, but I have all the respect in the world for people who do that.
How do you deal with writer's block?
I deal with writer's block usually by like I just have to separate myself from the work itself. When I was writing Doomsday Dani, I would get so in the weeds about being historically accurate. So, I would have my protagonist in the classroom and I would be like, what did VCRs look like in 1999? What did the television cart look like in 1999? So I would get so like frustrated with getting all these tiny details correct that sometimes I just couldn't move past them. So when that happens to me, I try to like literally take a break, separate myself, not look at it for a week. When that's really not possible, if I'm working on a deadline or like a self-imposed deadline, I just tend to maybe skip ahead and write the parts that I already know how they're going to go and I'm excited about writing them, and then I come back and fill those in later. So those are really the only two things I've found that really work for me.
Research superhighway. What kind of video would have it? When exactly was this movie released in 1999?
Yes. That was what I was dealing with. And then, I was always trying to get the dates correct. So if the calendar said that, December 27th was on a Tuesday, then I had to make sure it was a Tuesday in the book. So that kind of stuff, I got really in the weeds about. Doomsday Dani lives in Phoenix, which doesn't observe daylight savings time. So then I knew that she would celebrate the new year later than the rest of the country. And then I was like, how am I going to handle this? So little things like that frustrate me. And then it's just like, I can't move past it. So usually when that happens, I need to take a break and step away from the piece.
No, that makes sense. I mean, it's kind of interesting how much knowledge you build on that iceberg that you then don't necessarily use, but you're like, I know all of the things. I can tell you what happened November 22nd, 1999, everywhere. I know what happened everywhere. So what did you get initial reviews before the book release? Did you have ARC readers that did reviews for you?
I did have, I guess, what would be a promo team, a couple of people who got early PDF copies of the book, and then, were able to get a physical copy later on. And their reviews were that they really liked it. They thought, I think the thing that they like about it is it's about this period in time that's really not discussed very often. So right now, I think it's kind of a unique take. I actually started up a conversation with a middle grade author on Instagram, and she said she has a Y2K book in the works. So I think it's just for right now, kind of a new perspective. But I think Y2K has become very trendy, as far as like clothing is concerned and that sort of thing. I think kids are like, oh, this shirt is very Y2K, but they have no idea what that means, what they're talking about. Yeah. So I look for there to be more Y2K books in the future. If there aren't already, there could be more that I'm just unaware of. But initial reviews were that they liked it. They liked the subject matter. It is a very short book, so it tends to hold attention really well. And yeah, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback so far, which I'm really thankful for.
Very cool. So,
what is your Starbucks order?
So my Starbucks order is a white mocha. I always say warm for some reason when I go through. I don't think they even make mochas cold, but I'm always afraid. I get a white mocha, and then I love their pumpkin loaf. So usually I will get some of that if I am on my planning and have to eat lunch really quick before I go watch middle schoolers on the playground or grade papers or whatever the case may be.
Wow. Well, yeah. Actually, you can get them iced. I know this.
Oh, okay.
You can. Yeah.
With gets the iced white mochas.
Oh,
so
God.
Be smart and say hot.
Okay.
Otherwise, you could end up with an iced one.
The iced one is good, but if that's not what you're looking for,
right? No. Usually,
like
I need something warm.
Oh my goodness. Do you finish books all the time, or will you stop and throw it away?
Have I ever not finished a book that I'm currently reading? It has to be really, really bad. I typically if I read a book in education, they're called craft books that are just about teaching and how to organize your desks. Usually I'll just go through with those and just get the information I want from those books, and then I'll dispose of them sometimes or give them to somebody else. But for the most part, when it's fiction, I do try to finish it unless it presents ideas that I disagree with on a basic level. Then of course I won't read it. But for the most part, I do try to finish one. I'm trying to think of a fiction book that I did not finish, and nothing really comes to mind. I do try to stick it out usually.
Yeah, I think you should stop doing that.
Okay.
There's only so much time in your day. You might as well not spend it suffering,
Right. Yeah.
You've given the money. You've done what you can for the author. You're not going to write a review. So why give any more of your time and effort?
I mean, you're exactly right. And I'm sure there's a book out there that I was just I can't do this anymore. But, maybe it was 50 Shades of Grey. I don't know. I can't remember.
Oh, I didn't get more than 2 pages into that book. I didn't even buy it. I was I picked it up because everybody was talking about it. And I'm like, oh.
I read the entire thing, but only because it was a car crash that was happening in slow motion.
Yep.
And I was interested to see how the cars came together. So I was I'll read the entire thing.
Yep.
Yeah, no, there was this thing online called Honest Movie Trailers. Have you ever watched it?
Yes.
I love Honest Movie Trailers. It's one of my favorite things in the world. And he did an honest movie trailer of 50 Shades of Grey. But during that movie trailer, he's and here are some phrases not used in the movie, but were in the book. Like, and I think the number one that stuck out in my head was she turned red, the color of the Crimson Manifesto.
Oh, that woman's rich.
She's so rich. She has
Yeah.
so much money.
Yeah, she really is.
She can buy and sell us. Like,
Yeah.
God.
So interesting.
Yeah, no, it's definitely yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that line. It's like as red as the Communist Manifesto.
Yeah.
That is so funny.
You just got to go, okay, somebody let that through editing.
Yep.
I
If
think
I was editing that book, that would have not gotten through. I'd have been like, this is stupid.
I think it's a combination of her terrible writing and whoever edited that book, I want to just slap the shit out of. And
Yep.
You guys published this. This was somehow okay.
They were being really, really nice to her, apparently. They must have been, because no.
Well, she did have 10,000 pre-orders, so I could understand being nice to her.
Oh my goodness.
Well, she was a marketing person and she did Twilight fan fiction and had all these books, so she had 10,000 pre-orders. That's when anybody got interested in her. So welcome to how that works. Okay, Bo, you get the final question.
Oh my goodness.
Vodka.
Is there a quote from a book or poem that sticks with you, like one you just think about all the time?
You all are going to be so annoyed with me, but
in
the Hunger Games, specifically in Catching Fire, there is a quote. Katniss says, she talks about all the things she's been through, and she says, the sun insists on rising, so I make myself stand. And so I think I've thought about that quote a lot. I had I went to all the, I'm sure you're not surprised, but I went to all the like movie premieres at midnight. And so I got like this cloth poster that had that quote on it. And I think in my life, I have gone through a divorce and, losses of various kinds. But I still always had this obligation, as a teacher to my students and, just as a human being to get up and put in the work to continue to live. And so that is a quote that I think about a lot. And I think about, hey, the world is still spinning. So as long as it's still spinning, I've got to work through whatever it is I'm going through and get up and do my thing. So that's one that I always kind of cling to a little bit when I think about literary quotes.
That's a good literary quote.
Yeah, I love it.
So shameless self-promotion time. Where do people find you and your book?
You can find me, CarissaTurpinBooks.com is my website. I am also on Instagram at Carissa Turpin Books. And I have a Facebook page, Carissa Turpin Author. And I would love it if you would follow me there. Maybe there will be more books to follow this one. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed for you, my friend. Thank you so much for being on the podcast with us.
Thank you all for having me.
This time my internet worked the whole entire time.
Yeah, it was great.
Anyway, I'm like such a rebel right now. Okay, guys. This has been Drinking with Authors, the Literary Briefs edition. I have been your host, Erica Lance. My co-host has been the amazing Bo Lake. Our guest has been Carissa Turpin. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you, and we will see you next time.